This week on Land Beat, we're going to be talking about simple techniques in forestry management. Anytime we're getting into major management on a farm, we try to simplify it to a point where everyone can understand it. And we like to talk about the layers of a forest, meaning the overstory, the mid-story, and the understory, or the generations of a forest. The overstory being our tallest trees, the mid-story being the next generation that's filling in, and once the overstory is either removed or harvested or dies, that mid-story is going to be the overstory in the future, and then of course the understory is the next generation. And a lot of times what we see is very commonly you're going to see timber harvesting before you see any active timber management. So you're going to see people harvesting timber and then letting the timber grow back and then waiting for the next harvest. But there needs to be additional work if you really want to maximize the forest for improved habitat as well as improved potential harvests in the future. So what we see a lot, specifically in west central Illinois where we're at today, is there's a lot of invasives, specifically bush honeysuckle and multiflora rose. And those are shade tolerant species that can fill in the understory and eventually the mid-story, even when there is a dense overstory. And if someone comes in and harvested black walnuts or they harvest some oaks, they remove a portion of that overstory, the mid-story then explodes and it's invasive. So then the mid-story fills in more and more with invasive species or unwanted species. So we like to really address the problem before we open up that canopy. So if you can come in with a hatchet and a bottle herbicide and treat this mid-story and understory of invasive species with chemical, with a little bit of manual labor, and then introduce some prescribed fire to knock back a lot of the very young plants of bush honeysuckle like we see here, this can really help you prepare for a healthier forest. So once you do remove the overstory, the mid-story is beneficial species and the understory is now wanted species like oak regeneration, young oaks, and any other beneficial native species that we're looking for. So understanding that when we remove the overstory, the mid-story is now getting that new amount of sunlight and nutrients, so it's going to grow faster. So if it's good species that we want in the overstory, but unwanted species in the mid-story, you need to address that before you remove the overstory. You're going to be seeing a major change in your forest for the negative of that forest and the habitat for your wildlife. But this doesn't go just with invasives. This can also go with unwanted native species. If we're in an oak, hickory forest, an upland site, south-facing slope, we know this was historically burned. And if we're seeing a lot of maple or seeing a lot of hackberry or seeing a lot of green ash, these are species that we don't necessarily want to thrive in our south-facing upland sites where it's supposed to be oak hickory. So we're going to thin those out just like we're thinning out the invasives to try to promote oaks and hickories to reestablish on that landscape. So it's not just treating invasives with the Hack and Squirt crew like we're doing today, but it's also shaping the forest into a position of native ecosystems with natural disturbance, native disturbance, prescribed fire, so we can create maximized habitat for wildlife that the landowners addressed as his main goal to manage for here. So we're going to get after it.